Balisong knife is one of the most legendary knife designs in all of knife history. The real question that we want to address here is it still tactically relevant? What I'm holding here is one of the newer iterations of Balisongs, which was made by Kershaw, and this is the Kershaw Moonsault. And I got this a couple of years ago at the Blade Show at Old Town Cutlery, and they're based in Atlanta, Georgia. And I really enjoy working with this. But part of the issue that the entire Balisong industry is having to face is the fact that a big part of the Balisong industry, in fact, probably the entire Balisong industry, is driven by the flipper industries. So the Balisong flipper industry is primarily driven by companies like Squid or BRS and really geared more towards kids and teenagers with their offerings of trainers and also not so sharp knives, but really for the purposes of fun and flipping. Me personally, I think that this is good for the Balisong because allowing kids to play with the Balisong allows them, as they grow older, to have opportunities to build a foundation on those experiences to explore other things relating to the knife. First of all, it creates empowerment. Number two, a form of autonomy, a form of innovation, so that they can take a look at something and go, let me ideate on this movement because I think it's really cool. Relatively low risk, especially when they're being used with trainers. However, as they grow older, one of the things that I think is going to be presented to them is, well, what is the history of the Balisong? What is it for? And then ultimately, they are most likely going to run into the tactical history of the Balisong knife. So what I have here is a drop point model. This is the Kershaw Moonsault. I really enjoy this model because one, it's skeletonized. Number two, it has this hourglass shape so that my index and thumb can actually wrap around it. But also when I start to pull forward with my ring finger and pinky finger, I have freedom to move with it. So from a tactical perspective, I think it's really cool. So it has this spear point, almost drop point, but it's mostly a spear point profile, which I really enjoy with this. I like the hourglass piece to it so that when I choke up on it, there's the dynamic with the index finger and the thumb, so I can have this type of movement with it. There's this flaring out and then back in so that if I have to plant my palm into it for more reinforcement, I think it's really good. And it has the kind of weight that I like so that I know that the knife is always there. But the real question that we're looking to answer is that, is it still tactically relevant? And I've had a chance to ask around, I've had a chance to explore this, because when we look at the tactical application and history of the Balisong knife, it's kind of like the Navaja, where it's kind of considered a bit of a thuggish knife. It's the kind of knife that was used by really not very pleasant element. There's a reason why it has the kind of notoriety that it has. But that's a question relating to its social acceptance. It doesn't answer its tactical effectiveness. I think that it is important for knife makers to start thinking about the tactical roots of the Balisong, its tactical effectiveness, and maybe start to create a niche market outside of the flippers, because I think it's a missed opportunity. One of those important missed opportunities is the fact that a Balisong actually works as a fist load prior to deployment. So if you're thinking about self-defense and a quick deploy self-defense, there really is nothing like a fist load. So you can use this from a puño perspective. You can use this as a type of palm stick so that you can hit across. And because of the materials that are being used on the Balisong, this is very impactful and actually very painful, especially when you take a look at the Kershaw Moonsault and it has this piece to it, which from what I understand is a windshield breaker. So if you do this to somebody, this kind of movement, I think it's already a great self-defense tool prior to it being opened. And I think that's one of the important things that I want us to consider when we take a look at the tactical value of the Balisong. Now, that said, does it have a high learning curve? I think it has a high learning curve if you want to be a flipper, like if you want to have 10 or 12 openings to it. But I think that if you're looking at it from a more traditional standpoint, where you're really only looking at 3 openings at most, I think that if we focus less on the opening aspect of it and a little bit more on what can it do while closed and then opened, I think we open ourselves to a whole other practice of our beloved Filipino martial arts. So what I want to cover today is what some of those openings are like from the perspective of deployment, but also once deployed and especially opened in those very efficient ways, what kind of opportunities does it present to us in terms of our practice and our understanding of its tactical application. The one thing I want us to also think about with the use of the Balisong goes beyond, in my opinion, the relative complexity of the Filipino martial arts and gets us back down to brass tacks. This is a knife with a sharp point and a really sharp edge. You don't really need a very complex delivery system and skill set to make yourself effective while you're holding this. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for letting me share.
One of the primary tactical advantages of the modern Balisong is its skeletonized handle that is not bogged down by liners that you normally see on modern folding knives. So I like to call it my tag knife, where it doesn't take a lot of skill and all I have to do is play a little bit of tag with you and all of a sudden I'm touching you with the modern Balisong. This is one of the main reasons why it is favored by street fighters and people who like to get into street altercations, because it doesn't take a lot of skill. It's very light, very useful, very easy to conceal, and very fast. So take a look at this angle number one, which takes no skill at all. I can cover a lot of distance, cut right across, and be very effective with it. It's something that I see a lot in the use of the Balisong, especially in street altercations. Another tactical advantage of the Balisong, take a look at how I do that movement as a palm stick, but it opens in mid-attack, so it's closed right now, and then when I go ahead and attack, it opens, and once that latch opens, I can go ahead and do one of those one-hand openings, and off I go. The Balisong is also very capable in close range. You see me using the 3 of 9 right hand template from Sayok. I think that the Balisong actually lends itself to a lot of unskilled movements, so if you just give it to anybody, they can be really good at the use of it once they know how to do the one hand opening. But a lot of the techniques here that you're seeing is what I would like to categorize in my estacado method, almost like what they call it in the European fencing school, like the Eskrima vulgar, which is like those techniques when you first see it aren't very flashy. You don't see a lot of methodology behind it, but then when you face somebody with it, all of a sudden you're getting cut. And it's those types of techniques that you kind of overlook that will kind of catch you. And I think that this is what the Balisong lends itself to, these kinds of techniques, part of the Eskrima vulgar kind of category, where it doesn't look very skillful, doesn't look very impressive, but they will catch you with it. And I think that's part of the reputation of the Balisong, why it's so dangerous, because it's plug and play. You give it to somebody relatively fast and athletic and they'll catch you with it. Although the Balisong can lend itself to some high-level strategies and tactics which require a bit of practice and a bit of insight to be really effective with it, I think one of the things that makes it really effective is the fact that it can be utilized at a very base level without a lot of skill. Yes, at the end of the day, it's a knife. Anybody can say that about any knife. But the fact that it is skeletonized, it can be stealthy, it can be combined with some impact attacks, I think that's what makes it even more devastating because it's complex. Take a look at the simplicity of this. Look at how I do a one-hand opening. It's not even a complete opening. A very casual, quick flip of the wrist, and then the blade opens, and off I go. Angle number 5, and all of a sudden, it's a very dangerous weapon. I think that it covers the entire spectrum of what a knife can be on the one hand. Very high level, very tactical, also very flashy because of its design, especially if you know one of those great combination openings, which I don't think is necessary. But then way on the other side of the spectrum is just how easy it is to use once it is open. It's very basic and it doesn't take a lot of skill. And I think that that is where it's relatively enigmatic, but also that enigma of it makes it easily overlooked from a tactical perspective. It's not just a knife. I think it lends itself incredibly well to ease of accessibility. It just has to be revisited. So what I plan to do is to revisit the knife over the next few videos just to revisit its value as a tactical tool because I think it's overlooked. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around, stay tuned, more videos to come.